Hello, everyone, and thank you, Board Learners, for having me as a speaker. Today, I'm going to be presenting you the much requested topic, personal statement. If you're an international student, it might be pretty daunting to start writing your essay because you might think that, oh my gosh, it has to be perfect. You probably saw all those essay samples on Google where people are writing in Shakespearean English, and it looks like not like a college essay, but more like a Pulitzer Prize winning piece. So I'm here to tell you that you don't have to do any of that to write a winning personal statement. I work mostly with international students. Many of them are still in the process of learning English as we're working together. The most important thing in your personal statement is, there are actually a lot of important things, and that's what we're going to cover today. So I am very happy to meet all of the Borderless community members. So if I get this correctly, this will be recorded and then posted on Borderless. So, which means that after this event, I will do an announcement on my page and let people know that the recording is going to be available on Borderless so they can go join, find out about different opportunities and watch the video. So those of you who have attended my previous webinar on personal statement, this is going to be pretty much like it, but since there are only 50 of us, not 650, you can actually ask questions and we can do a more intimate interaction when it comes to the personal statement. So let's get started. Ooh, I'm always scared to do the share screen because I'm like, is it going to share the things that I don't want, to be shared? Okay, so let's do this. So does everyone see my screen?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, great. So personal statement, 0 to 650. Why is it 0? Because probably if you are at this webinar, at this meetup, you are at 0 or maybe at the very beginning and you want to get to 650 so that your personal statement is done. So why is it 650? So to those of you who haven't yet applied to US universities, what is a personal statement? A lot of times people use different terms to describe it. They're like, it's a motivational letter. It is not a motivational letter. Please stop using that term because it is incorrect. Motivational letter is an essay that you write where you explain your motivations for choosing a certain course of study. That is not a personal statement. Personal statement is a personal essay that you write to US universities, and that is submitted through a web platform called Common App. That is not where you tell universities why you want to study, what you want to study, what's your intended major. No. That is where you talk about your story. So please stop calling it anything but a personal statement. The other thing is that personal statement is 650 words. You don't have to make sure that it's exactly 650 words, but that's what my students do because, I am like that. But it can be, 600, it can be, 550. And if you're able to put it in 500 words, that's great. But most of the stories, people don't have enough words, don't have enough space to write out everything that they want to do. And there are 7 prompts to the personal statement. What is the beauty of that? The beauty of that is that they don't change, and you are able to start prepping for your personal statement as early as 9th grade if you speak English, because writing is really a skill that develops over time. And if you really want to prep yourself for writing a personal statement, it is really good to get started early instead of waiting for that year, when the Common App application is going to be available for you as a senior. Okay. So let's go over all of the prompts that they have. They originally only had 6 prompts, and then they've added one more recently. So you're able to choose. Honestly, most of the personal statement prompts, they are open-ended. So you can take any topic, and you can fit it within the personal statement prompts. So if you look at it, you'll see that, there is the first one, some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent that is meaningful to them, that is so meaningful to them that they think that their application without it would be incomplete. So if you want to share something about your background, this is where you would write about it. So well, what do they mean about background? So a lot of times people are like, oh, maybe they mean like my ethnic background, maybe they mean about my racial identity or gender. Yes, those things, can be applied, but it doesn't have to be as formal as that. So maybe your background or part of your identity is that you really love comics, and that's what you're known for, and you're like, you know what, I'm going to write my personal statement about that. Or maybe your talent, it doesn't necessarily have to be, something in sports or something in music. Maybe your talent is that you tell great jokes and everyone thinks that you're funny. So when you think of personal statements, like really try to throw out this thing that you were taught when you were prepping for the TOEFL or IELTS, because it is not that formal when it comes to a personal statement. You are writing it for US universities, and US universities are known to be personal, creative. So do take that into consideration, okay? So the second prompt is the lessons we take from obstacles we encounter can be fundamental to later success. Recount a time when you faced a challenge, setback, or failure. How did it affect you, and what did you learn from that experience? This sounds like a very simple question, but a lot of times people get this wrong. Why? Because instead of talking about how they have overcome a challenge, people just start complaining. They're like, oh my gosh, when I was in 5th grade, I was bullied by this girl. She was really mean. I hated her. And the whole essay is about how mean that girl was and how much, you hate her. But in reality, what the personal statement should have been about is that, yes, I was bullied, and this is how I have overcome that, if you did overcome that. So this is not a space for you to rant. It is a place for you to change, to show growth. Like, how did you overcome that challenge? And the problem that people have with describing overcoming challenge, they're just like, oh, I just overcame overcame bullying. That's it. How? The whole essay is supposed to be about the how, because can you imagine how annoying it would be if you signed up for today's personal statement workshop, and I would be like, just write it, just go from 0 to 650. You're like, what do you mean? I'm just like, just write it. So when you write about a story where you don't explain the how did the growth happen? How did the change happen? The admissions committee is like, why did I just waste my time reading this? So when you're talking about a challenge, about a setback, how you went from point A to point B, explain how that growth happened. Better yet, show it. We'll talk about that. Third one is reflect on a time when you questioned or challenged a belief or idea. What prompted you, and what was the outcome? This is something that international students, a lot of times, they don't pick as a personal statement prompt. And I think, that's a pity, because this is a great prompt. There are many times in our life, when our ideas or our beliefs are challenged. Maybe it is when you signed up for TikTok and you've learned a lot of things, and you realize that, oh my gosh, I didn't really know that X, Y, and Z is true, or that A and B can coexist. So it really can be ideas that, again, don't have to be super formal. It can be something as simple as saying, well, I actually think that magic can exist in some parallel universe, and you can talk about it and explain why. So really have fun with it, and like, don't be like too serious, because a lot of times people are like, what do you mean, Aizhan? Like, I'm writing essays for like Princeton's and Harvard's, like I have to be super serious. Do you? I don't think so. So the next prompt that they have on a Common App for your personal statement is reflect on something that someone has done for you that has made you happy or thankful in a surprising way. How has this gratitude affected you or motivated you? So this one is new. And UPenn has a very similar prompt this year. So if you're writing a supplemental essay for UPenn, don't pick this prompt, because then, it would be repetitive. So this is pretty simple, and when you write about being grateful to someone, don't just say like, oh, I'm just grateful to this person. This person is great. Again, you have to show what is this person, what has this person done, and what was the element of surprise. You really have to explain that. And then your gratitude has to be shown in a way You have to explain that whether the gratitude was shown by you or this is something that you can't do anymore. Maybe this person has passed away. Maybe you don't have access to them. Maybe you feel shy about expressing, your gratitude. So really, show it in a way that explains the situation. Because a lot of times people read these personal statement prompts and they forget that they're writing an essay for a US university, and then they're just like, well, and they literally rephrase the prompt and they're like, I've reflected on a time when someone has done something nice for you. No, you don't do that. You just go straight into the story. The fifth prompt is discuss an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth. So as you can see, it's very similar to prompt 3, where you have to question idea or challenge a belief or idea. So pretty simple. You have to demonstrate growth, you have to demonstrate change. So what was that accomplishment? How did you get there? Don't just say, I won an Olympiad. Great, cool. How? Why is this an accomplishment? And how did this event come, to be? And how did this realization come to your head? Like nothing just like, randomly comes up. Not everyone sits under a tree like Newton and then, then an apple falls on their head and they're like, ooh, I have a theory, So you really have to show how this period of personal growth has come to you. And then describe a topic, idea, or concept you find so engaging that it makes you lose all track of time. Why does it captivate you? So this is hard for a lot of people because think of something that you're super passionate about. So for a lot of people, it's music, it's TV shows, or food, or they're like, oh my gosh, I love my cat. And I'm like, okay, great. Why do you like those things? And it's literally like that TikTok, where they're like, it's corn, just look at this thing, And I'm like, okay, you can't do that. You have to actually explain why does it make you lose all track of time. So I can give you an explanation. Let's say like I love my dog. I can spend endless, hours with him, and I have an explanation for that. I'm really outdoorsy, so I spend a lot of time outside. We do things outside. Second thing is that I just really calm down when I pet the dog. So I get a lot of positive emotions. And then when you get positive emotions, you want it to go on forever, But for a lot of people, they're like, I can't really explain like why I like music. I just like it. No, it just means you're lazy. Think about it. Why do you like it? Oh. Okay, so then if you don't like any of these prompts and they don't work for you, you can just pick a choice, a topic of your own and go with that. But that rarely happens, because the available 6 prompts are so broad that you can pretty much apply it to any story that you have. So when should you start writing your personal statement? If you are a senior in high school right now, you should start writing it today. You should have started the process in August, really. But don't freak out. We're here today to discuss things. You still have time. So if you are not a senior, you can start practicing anytime. The prompts don't change, as I've mentioned. And obviously, it is a lot easier to write your personal statement when you can write in English. It sounds a bit stupid, but you can't imagine how many people reach out to me and they're like, hey, my IELTS is 5.0. Can I start writing a personal statement with you? And I'm like, no, because you're going to be learning multiple things at the same time. First, learn, how to write, how to understand text in English, and then you can start writing your personal statement. But if you are not yet there, maybe your English is still there, at 5.0 in terms of IELTS, that's fine. You can just start getting acquainted with the format of the personal statement, and you will see like patterns and why certain personal statements work for certain universities. So a strong personal statement must be all of the following things that you see here. First off, it has to be personal. So it has to be a real story that is important to you. This sounds pretty simple. You're like, duh, it is a personal statement. Of course, it has to be personal. But not a lot of people understand what personal means. What personal means is that it has to be about you. It should not be about your grandpa. It should not be about your friend. It should not be about other characters in the story. Even when you are telling about a significant role somebody else has played in your life, it still has to be on you. So instead of just spending 650 words on describing a person or what they have done for you, focus on how they made you feel. What was the significance of that for you? So you are the center of your essay. Okay. So sometimes people get carried away and they turn their essay into something else. Or let's say if they're writing about a club that they participated in school, they completely forget that this is a personal statement, and they just start writing about a club and what they did in the club. And I'm like, where is you? I already have information about your activities in the activities section. Where is the story about you? So it has to be a story that is important to you. The second thing is that your personal statement has to be creative. So this is where people get a bit confused because, as I said at the very beginning of this meeting, the personal statement samples that you see online, first of all, you have no idea if they were actually written by people who have gotten into colleges in US. Also, you have no idea if that personal statement is something that was very integral to their application. A person just gets into an Ivy League and they're like, oh, it means that my entire application was amazing, which means that I should take out my personal statement and record a 3-minute videos on TikTok telling everyone that this is how I got into Harvard. No, you have no idea why people have gotten into a certain institution. You haven't talked to the admissions person who has reviewed their file. So you can look at other people's personal statement, like successful candidates, just maybe for an understanding of how a personal statement works, but it doesn't have to mean that that is what got them in. Okay, you know what I mean? Because your application consists of many different things and you have no idea if their personal statement is what got them in. And a lot of times when you're an international student and you read an essay that was written by a native speaker, especially if it's someone, you know, who went to a boarding school or who was in an advanced program like AP or IB, they're like, oh my gosh, like I really should emulate their writing, their style, their word choice. I should try to be like them. So that is why a lot of people struggle when they're writing their personal statement, because they're like, oh my gosh, I can't come up with enough metaphors or similes. I'm like, yo, don't even go there yet. I was like, let's just figure out your topic, your story, and then we're going to move on to similes, metaphors. It's fine that you don't know what those things are because you were not taught those things. You probably haven't even started reading books in English because they're not available in Kazakhstan or Uzbekistan or Nigeria or, you know, other countries. They're very expensive. So before you worry about your essay getting creative using literary devices, just get the basics down. And then I call the literary devices like the ornaments that you hang on your essay. They come at the very end. First, you have to set up the tree, okay? The third thing that your personal statement has to be is it has to be dynamic. If it's monotonous, if it's written in passive voice, oh, I'm going to fall asleep, you know? You have 650 words to tell a very long story, you know, and you have to do it in a way that is dynamic, that makes me feel like I'm part of the story. And as you've seen, 6 of the prompts, we focus a lot on change. So you show, you make your text dynamic, you know, by including dialogue, you know, by making sure that you are shifting scenes, that you're moving from a scene to thoughts and so forth and so forth. You have an introduction, then you have the story, then you have, and then the fourth thing that your personal statement has to be is it has to be structured. So it doesn't mean that it has to follow the strict introduction, body, conclusion format that many of us have been taught in schools. And that is a fine format, but not for a personal statement. Your personal statement, the introduction can be your hook, where you can start with a dialogue, you can start with a quote, you can start with a funny fact, you can start with a literary device, and then your body is your story. So what is it, you know, that your essay is about? And then your conclusion is your reflection. This is the format that I recommend for international students, for ESL speakers. There's also another format. It's called the montage structure, but people who are not native speakers have difficulty with that structure. I mean, obviously you can choose that one. Montage structure is when you basically shift from one scene to another. So it's like montage, but it is very difficult to do that when you don't have that level of English. And your personal statement has to be reflective. What does that mean? It means that it has to answer the so what question. So when I am done as an admissions officer reading your essay, your essay should answer the so what question, as in, okay, this happened to you. Why should I care? So what? And if I don't have an answer to that question by the time I read your essay, that was not a good essay. So you have to ask yourself, how does this essay contribute to my application? Why is it important? So let's say it can be any topic. Don't think that just because you chose a difficult topic, it answers the so what question. A lot of times people are like, you know what, I'm going to write about some traumatic event in my life. And then they write about it and then I read it, like, okay, why did I just learn that? And they're like, well, it's sad. Like, you know, my mom died. So yeah, that's basically it. And I'm like, okay, but I don't want to sound harsh, but so how did this affect you? Because I didn't really see anything but the fact that your parent has passed away, but I have no idea how that has affected you, your life. Did it affect it at all? Like, I have no idea, you know? So it has to answer the so what question. You can't just assume that the reader will read your mind. It's your job as a writer for me to understand, for everything to be clarified in the conclusion, and for the so what question to be answered in the reflection. Okay, so these are the components that you need to be aware of. So why do universities ask for a personal statement when you have your transcripts, you have your activities lists, you have your grades? Well, US universities, they practice what is known as holistic admissions. They want to make sure that they really get to know the whole you, and the numbers don't really reflect who you are as a person. And they just want to understand, like, who are you in terms of your values, interests, and needs. Okay. So the other reason why they ask you to write a personal statement is because, so look at these little gray people. This is how most of the people look like when you just look at their numbers. So perfect GPA, perfect SAT, perfect AP, perfect IB, perfect, perfect, perfect. You know, they're not looking for perfect. They're looking for someone who is a good fit for them for that particular year. So they want you to be not this gray person. They want you to be like this green person. And how do you make yourself that green person in this ocean of people who are perfect? You write a unique essay, and a unique essay is something that comes from the heart. As cheesy as it sounds, it is. Because if it's something that even if you hired someone to write your essay, it's not about your essay being perfectly written as in terms of grammar and all that. No, it has to come from the heart, because what you feel and what you think can't be replicated, because there is only one of you. We can all experience one event, like this similar event, like let's say today's meeting. But then if you're going to ask each other, like, what did you think about it? How did you experience it? People will say different things. So it's like some people are going to be like, oh my gosh, like, why was Aizhan wearing a sweater? Isn't it hot? You know, the other person would not have even noticed like how I look like, you know. The other person probably would be looking at the screen, or, you know, at each other, or other people would be messaging each other in the chat and discussing live, you know, what is happening. So different people will have different experiences. So that is what, the admissions committee wants to see. They want to see like what makes you, you. So what are the stages of writing a personal statement? Most of the time people think that writing is just this process where you're like, ooh, like first you sit and you wait there, and then an idea strikes you, an inspiration, and you're like, okay, and you just start writing out, you know, this great idea that comes to your head. That's not how it works. Unless you are super talented, you have some divine talent. That is not how it works for us, you know, regular folks. So there are stages to writing a great personal statement, and time is your best friend. So please don't procrastinate. Please don't sit there thinking that, ooh, there will be a day when a great idea will come. No, it won't. It only will come if you're going to practice. So the first stage is called the pre-writing stage. So during the pre-writing stage, you set yourself up for writing. So you get a computer, you get a notebook or a notepad, you do a mind map if that's what you want to do. Sometimes, you know, people who like to talk like this, they set up a camera, so they just, you know, start thinking out loud. Then you have the outlining stage when you take your ideas that you have developed during your brainstorming process, and you start outlining them. You're like, okay, I think it should follow like this chronological order and so forth and so forth. Then you have your writing stage when you're actually sitting down and writing out the things that you want to say. Then you have your revising stage when you are working on the structure of the essay, because when you're writing, the whole point is just to get everything on paper. When you're writing, you're not thinking about like, oh, it has to go here, it has to go there. No, the point is just to slap everything that is in your head onto paper. And then when you get to the revising stage, you're like, ooh, okay, this has to go here, this has to be deleted, and so forth and so forth. And then you get to the editing stage. Editing stage is when you send your essay, you know, to someone and you're like, hey, can you look at grammar? Can you look at syntax and so forth? So it's very important for you to understand the difference between revising and editing, because a lot of times people are like, hey, can you, you know, edit my essay? And I'm like, are you sure you want me to edit it? Because I think it needs to be revised. Okay, personal statement. What pre-writing stage? What are the steps? So first you have to familiarize yourself with the format of the personal statement. So you can go read some of the essays, but don't try to copy them and figure out that there are 650 words. You just, you know, read them and really try to understand what is it that they want out of you. And then you start brainstorming topics. So brainstorming topics is not when, again, you don't wait for a great idea to come. If you have no ideas, then just write that out, you know, be like, I have no ideas. Why? Because I think I'm not good enough to go to US universities. Why do I think that? Because I have an imposter syndrome. Why do I have an imposter syndrome? So right there is your brainstorming, you know? So it is very important just to write something down. There is no such thing as a stupid idea or a stupid topic during the brainstorming phase. Just write everything down. The best method that I have for people that I work with is the Pomodoro method. So I give them 5 minutes. I was like, and within these 5 minutes, you have to write nonstop. Nonstop, you can't stop. Like if you have nothing in your head, in your brain, in your thoughts, which I don't really think is something that can happen during the brainstorming stage. I was like, then just write things about, you know, that you see. You're like, I see a bottle of water. I see a laptop, you know, I see a screen and so forth. Then once you're done, you know, writing, you're brainstorming, you review your brainstorm topics. So you're like, okay, what is salvageable? And then when you're looking at those topics, like be really careful, because people are like, oh, like I need to find the diamond in the rough. No, you don't find a diamond in the rough. You develop a diamond. Diamond has to be pressurized. It just does not exist, you know, in nature like that. So you find a topic that has potential for you that you're like, huh, this is interesting. And then you brainstorm some more, you know, you think of all the ideas that come to your head. This takes days. Sometimes it takes weeks. And once you're like, you know what, I have written down everything that I can possibly think of. I have no other ideas, thoughts, or emotions in me. That is when your brainstorming process is done. And then you review your brainstorm topics. You've tried to find themes. You're like, okay, how can I combine different, you know, topics? How can I combine different events? Like, how are they relevant to one another, and so forth. And then you finalize the list of your topics. So you're like, okay, you know what? I really want to write an essay about my dog, about my grandpa, and about winning an Olympiad. So how do I choose between these three? Because I feel passionately, you know, about all three of them. Then, you know, to really understand whether there is a story behind the selected topics, let's say your grandpa, dog, and the Olympiad, you do a free write on selected topics, developing them into stories. So you do a free write. So free write is when you just write whatever comes to your mind. So you're like, I love my grandpa. My grandpa makes the best jam. My grandpa, and I. So just whatever comes to your mind, you write that. And then same thing, like with your dog, same thing with the Olympiad. So then you look at the, I don't know if you can see it because I have like this notifications coming up on my screen. But then you do the free write revision. So you look at all the stories that you have developed and you're like, you know what, I felt the easiest and the story just, you know, flowed when I was writing about my, let's say, grandpa. So you write about your grandpa because you're like, you know what, this is going to be the easier topic. Okay. So I went over what brainstorming topics is, and I explained what free writing is. Free writing is also called stream of consciousness writing. It is when you write without really thinking in terms of structure, grammar, you just write whatever comes to your mind. Because as I told you before, there are stages to writing. So you're not worried about things like grammar because it really censors you. It's a barrier. It makes you stumble. It makes you write really slow. Sometimes I make people share their screen so I can see like, what is it that is holding them back? It is because they sit there for an hour and they try to develop the perfect one sentence. They keep rewriting that one sentence. I'm like, what are you doing? It's like the point was just to write whatever comes to your head. I was like, I don't care. I was like, even if sometimes you don't know the word in English, God, just write it in your native tongue, you know? So you're like, oh, like I really want to say this, but I don't really know how to say it in English. Write it in your, mother tongue. And then you can come back to it and then you can translate it into English. But then if you're going to like get distracted, go on Google, try to Google the translation, like that's it. You lost the momentum. So just write it in your native tongue and move on. That's what free writing is. Okay. There's no teacher. You're not writing it for class. It's only going to be evaluated in its final draft. So free writing, be free. Okay. So the personal statement, the outlining stage. So the outlining stage is when you're like, okay, I need to develop it into clear-cut structures. So you need to have your story. Your story is the middle of your essay, right? The body. And your story has to be dynamic. There needs to be some sort of change. There needs to be some sort of transformation. There needs to be some sort of growth. And you have to show it. Now, don't tell me you changed, show me that you changed, because that is when I'm going to believe you. The second thing, and this is at the very end of your essay, or your reflection can be sprinkled all through your essay, is why was this story told? Again, for ESL speakers, it's much easier when reflection is used as a conclusion, because they're like, well, in conclusion, or when I think about it, or I came to a realization, that is how they conclude their essay, and it's much easier. Obviously, if you have advanced command of English, you can always just sprinkle the reflection throughout your essay. And sometimes that's what a lot of people do. And obviously, you need to have the introduction. It goes at the very beginning of your essay. You set the stage for the story, either by introducing the characters, by setting the stage, literally explaining what the story is going to be about, providing enough information to the reader so that they can understand what's going to happen next. Because a lot of times writers, especially when you are a foreigner, especially when you are a non-American, people forget that you're writing an essay about something that is not common in US, and you just assume that every American knows what is being talked about. Like, let's say about an Olympiad, people are like, in the pre-qualifying, well, I'm like, nobody in Kansas knows what pre-qualifying for an Olympiad is. So you have to set the stage. You have to explain what that is. You have to explain what's the big deal about these Olympiads. So because most of the people are going to be like, Olympiads, is that the same thing? Like when you do sports? So you really have to understand the cultural context. So, and that can be done very well in the introduction. Okay. So then you're in the writing stage. So writing stage is basically the cycle of free writing and brainstorming, free writing and brainstorming. So writing, you are writing your essay if you're brainstorming or if you're free writing. So don't think that writing is only when your essay looks perfect. If you are doing any of these two things, you have to do them in cycles. You can just like do one cycle of free writing or one cycle of brainstorming and you're like, okay, I'm done. No, you're not done. Sit down. Sit back down and do like another 10, 15 of these so that we are like, okay, I really have nothing to say on this topic. So I'm done. And that's when your writing stage is done. After that comes the revising and editing stage. Again, as I said before, revising and editing are two different things. Revising is when you are improving diction, changing structure and content. This is when you usually want to reach out to someone and be like, hey, can you give me feedback on what needs to go where? And same thing with editing. Editing takes a lot of time. So that's why when people are like, can you just glance at my essay? And what they mean is that I'm like, okay, what do you want me to do? If I can glance at it, but you're not going to get anything out of me because glancing is not going to help anyone. And when you're sending your essay to a friend, to a teacher, to an educational consultant, you really have to give them the clear assignment and being like, hey, friend or teacher, I really want you to revise this. and give me clear feedback on what can be improved in terms of structure, in terms of content, in terms of diction. And then if you feel like your revising stage is done, you're like, you know what, I just want finishing touches. Can you like look out for grammar mistakes, punctuation mistakes? So this is ready to be submitted. Okay. And this takes, revising and editing is not just one round. Like this is what I also try to explain to people, and I'm pretty sure the team at Borderless gets, inundated with these questions as well. People are just like, oh, just look at it once, I'll pay you, and then it's done. No, it's a cyclical process. Like you send someone, and then I give feedback, and then you're like, okay, can you now look at my second draft? And then you send me your second draft, and I give feedback to it again, and then you're like, okay, can you look at my third draft? I'm like, I thought I was just supposed to glance at it. Why am I at this for the third week? So you really, really have to give people time, because it's not that you're going to send somebody your essay, like whether it's your friend, whether it's your teacher, and they're going to immediately respond to you. It takes time to sit down, to read it, to give it some thought. So please don't be the kind of a person who's sending people your essay on December 15th, and you're like, can you respond to me within like 24 hours? No, people won't. And you will also need time yourself, to incorporate the feedback that you have received into your personal statement. Okay. So this is what, I said before. So I want us to do a little exercise to get started with your pre-writing, or just to give you an idea of, for example, how I do it. So we're going to do brainstorming. When you're brainstorming, please make sure that you're having fun. This is, an unconventional meeting. You're not in a classroom. So uncensor yourself, use the Pomodoro method. I'm going to time you, and then jot down ideas and bullet points. Please don't write paragraphs. Don't build cathedrals out of texts. I'm literally just looking for bullet points. Bullet points is when you're like, let's say, if I'm going to give you a prompt, let's talk about weather. So you write like sun, clouds, blue sky. You don't write like, today I woke up and the rain was pouring down. And like, no, that's not what I'm looking for. And then you can, if you want to brainstorm in your own free time after today's meeting, you can go on New York Times website, and they have New York Times writing prompts. It really helps with your creativity. So let's get started. The brainstorming exercise will take 5 minutes, and I want you to open a Google Doc or any other, writing app, and I want you to brainstorm on the following prompt without stopping. Again, brainstorming using bullet points. And the prompt is the following: what are your bathing habits and or rituals? So 5 minutes, start now. I will let you know when it is over. Okay, the time is up. If you could copy and paste the bullet points that you have written down and send them to the chat, that would be wonderful. So we can all take a look at our brainstorming process. And you will see that a lot of people, have the same thing. And then you will be surprised by some of the brainstorming ideas that other people had. So Apple sent an entire paragraph. Do you remember what I said? Just bullet points. We're not writing yet. We're just brainstorming. Okay, I like prepping green tea to drink it right after I take a bath. That's very nice. I love using bath bombs. Somebody likes, a lot of foam. And then, okay, there's an entire skincare routine that we see from Diana. And you will see a lot of themes coming up, that people are like, if it's a girl, you will see a lot of skincare rituals. With men, it's much shorter. Oh, there's music, while people are brushing their teeth. So why did I ask you to send these things? So when I did my brainstorming for bathing habits and their rituals, I wrote down not just things that are pertinent to the present, but also to the past. So I wrote about Sunday Banya. I don't do this anymore, but this is something that I did as a child growing up in Kazakhstan. I wrote about cold showers because that's something that I do as an adult. I wrote about washing my hair every 2 days because this is long and very heavy. It's impossible to wash it every day. And then I thought about my pre-bathing rituals like dry brushing, and then post-bathing rituals like many of you, it's also brushing teeth, skincare, and so forth. And then once I was done with my brainstorming, like many of you, I wrote out a lot of things that I do. I start reviewing my brainstorming. So are there any identifiable themes in any of these things? Are there any interesting ideas that can be further explored? Are there any memories, thoughts that can be attached to any of these things, like Sunday banya, cold showers, and so forth? So right now, when you're looking at it, you're like, not really. Like, this is pretty average, nothing unique, nothing that you should write an essay about. Is that so, though? So let's say I decide to focus on Sunday banya, and I think of memories of going to banya with my mom and aunts. Like, what was it like for me? How did that affect me as a person? Did it build the foundation of my obsession with skincare? And then what are some other questions that I can explore, from looking at my brainstorming? What has affected my bathing rituals? Do people everywhere in the world, go to banya or know what it is? So, for example, in US, people don't go to banya unless they're Korean or even know what it is. What is behind this ritual of going to banya? Is it self-care? Is it commercialization of showering or commercialization of self-care processes? Is it just simply hygiene? You just want to be clean and smell nice? So things like that, you can really go deep. You can go micro, you can go macro. Micro is when you go deep down into your own self and you're like, how did this, affect me? How did this contribute to my personality? And then macro is when you look outward. I'm like, okay, why do I use candles when I take shower? That's not something that I did as a child. We didn't have nice smelling candles back then. And I'm like, I'm doing that because I saw it on TikTok. That's all Jackie Aina, and her brand, and her selling me really nice smelling candles. Then I'm like, so it is consumerism, it is marketing. I'm like, oh my God, so you start thinking about things like that when you're reviewing your brainstorming. Although if you look at the left side of the screen, you're like, it's not, at first it's like, it's whatever, like everyone does these things. But then if you ask, interesting questions, anything can become a topic worthy of a great college essay. So then once I review my brainstorming, I finalize a list of topics. So I decide that I'm going to write about Sunday banya, right? So now I want you to do the same thing that I just showed you with my own writing. So you did brainstorming. Now I want you to select a topic. So let's say right now I'm looking at Apple, right? So Apple is saying that every night, only a time of day I gather my thoughts, makes me feel relaxed. I want you to pick one thing. This is why I didn't want you to write it in a text format. It's so much easier when it's a bullet point. Just take one topic, let's say the fact that baths are your guilty pleasure, and I want you to free write on it. Just write whatever comes to your mind, okay? So instead of 5 minutes, for the sake of time, I'm gonna give you all 3 minutes, and 3 minutes start now, and I will let you know when the time's up. Okay, time is up. It would be great if you could copy and paste your text and send it to the chat. Okay, so Katrina, the seller told me at the store the soap on the special packaging cost $10, which I bought, but it made the soap all mushy. Okay, Diana, candles with coconut smell. I use them. Coconut smell. Okay, I use them when I need to relax. Usually I get candles as a gift from close people, so it also reminds me of them. Oh, that's really sweet. We have something from Ilya. This week in my school will be a teacher day, and my friend suggested my to be a Turkey language teacher. My Turkey's, I don't really understand this. How is this a bathing ritual? Okay, Noraim sent a really long one. Okay, these are great. I hope Veronica will have fun reading them because I would love to, take some time to read this at the end. So what do you do with your free writing? So I want to, again, show based on the example that I developed myself, right? So once you've done your free writing and everything that you are sending to the chat is free writing, if you let yourself just, pick a topic and write about it. And when I said pick a topic, I meant pick a topic from your brainstorming process. And since the prompt was about bathing rituals, your free writing needs to be around bathing rituals. So my selected topic was Sunday Banya. So I wrote a little story that came to mind when I selected that. So I go to Banya every Sunday. At the Banya, I wash myself thoroughly with a loofah. My skin is always super red, but squeaky clear after scrubbing. Everyone around me is naked. I am naked too, but I don't feel shy or uncomfortable. There are all kinds of female bodies around me, old and wrinkly, pregnant, with post-surgical scars, with cellulite, with hair, hairless, pale, dark, freckled, skinny, covered in fat, etc. After washing myself, I go to the sauna and sit there for 15 minutes. Then I go to take a cold shower, and then I go to a resting room to drink green tea with mint. I feel clean, relaxed, and renewed after banya. So I think any of you who have ever been to banya could identify, with what I have written here. And then once you review your free writing, if you see at the very top, I have keep, add, delete, or combine. So I look at what I have written during my free writing stage, and I'm like, what do I need to keep? What more do I need to add, so that people can have a better understanding of what's going on? What do I need to delete, as in what is not contributing to the story? Or what are some of the things that need to be combined because they're taking up too much space by existing separately? So when you do the keep, delete, add, and combine, you really have to think about, the functionality. You only have 650 words, and you want to make sure that every sentence in your essay is functional. After you figure out what needs to be added, what needs to be combined, what needs to be deleted, you move on to the next stage. It is when you build a story for a personal statement. So my story is, already there, and I'll explain you how I got there. So the first one is the intro, right? I go to Banya every Sunday. That's my intro. That's what my essay is going to be about. What is the story, though? The story is that everyone around me is naked. I'm naked too, but I don't feel uncomfortable, and then I describe different people around me. And then there is the reflection. Going to Banya has made me comfortable in my skin and has set realistic standards for female bodies. So when you read that reflection, you're like, wait, what? Where did that get from? How did you get from here where there is nothing, there's no reflection, I'm just describing things. How did I get here? Well, I remembered their experience and the feelings and thoughts associated with it. If you remember earlier, I said that it's important to ask yourself macro and micro questions. So now when I was describing, going to Banya, seeing all these women, I realized that because I grew up seeing different kinds of women, different bodies, I realized that it's normal. It's normal to be old, and to have wrinkly skin. It is normal, to have post-surgery scars. It's normal. It's realistic. So it means it is healthy. It is normal. And I wasn't really affected by media and its unrealistic standards for a female body. So that is like my macro reflection on it. And then I thought about the personal significance of the story. Like, why did I remember it? There's so many things that have happened to me when I was a child, but why was this experience, something that was so deeply ingrained in my memory? And why is it significant? And stories do not come wrapped, in personal significance. Like, your brain does not operate that way. Your brain stores memories because they affected you. But when you're writing a college essay, it is your job to sit down and be like, why did I remember this? What is its what's the cultural significance of the story? What's the political significance of the story? That is something that you have to reflect on. That does not come prepped. So obviously, if you have high critical thinking skills, or if you are just very good with writing, with reflecting, this is something that will come easier to you. But if this is not something that you do on a regular basis, it will be hard. So you can reflect and brainstorm and critically think about anything, and you can do it every day, all day. And it builds that critical thinking and creative thinking muscle. I also brainstormed on the lessons learned from this experience. So obviously, you first start with things that are on the surface. So I'm like, okay, what did I learn, from experiences that were associated with going to banya? Well, that, I have to be clean, and it's important to be clean and smell nice. And then there are in-depth lessons, on community. Where I come from, in Kazakhstan, it's a very communal society, and even things like going, taking a bath, historically, and to this day for many people, is something that people do together. But in individualistic societies, like for example the US, it's a bit strange, for people just to go and take bathe together to cleanse themselves. Like that might not be something that they're into. And then I brainstormed on what I want to communicate with this story. So do you remember the things that your personal statement has to be? It has to be reflective. It has to answer the so what question. If I'm going to tell a story of me going to banya and seeing a bunch of naked people, like that can become awkward real fast for a college essay. But if I'm going to turn it into an essay where I say, and this is why I grew up to be a healthy woman, who doesn't have unrealistic standards of beauty, is because when I was a child, like I've seen what female bodies are like, that what my body will eventually will become like. And this is why, I was not affected by magazines, by videos and all of the other things, because I was like, this is not real. I've seen what real is. So this is just, show. And I brainstormed on how do I bring that about without making the reader feel uncomfortable, because obviously when you're talking about nudity, that can make the reader uncomfortable, especially if it's a college admissions officer. So you have to brainstorm on what is it that you want to communicate with this story, and why is it important to you, okay? So I want to finish today's workshop with some of my favorite free resources that can help you with your writing. The first one is College Essay Guy. I love him. Ethan Sawyer and his team have done an amazing job on putting together amazing resources for writing a personal statement, as well as supplemental essays. And it's all free. It's super detailed. It was compiled not by college students or self-proclaimed experts. These are people who are educational consultants and college counselors, so they know what they're talking about. There's also a YouTube channel, Super Tutor TV. She talks about everything SAT, college admissions, and she's really, really good at what she does. Compass Advisors provide really great sample essays when it comes to personal statements and supplementals, and I think it's a great website. College Vine has an amazing, amazing tool called peer review. It's free. So if you do a good job peer reviewing somebody else's essay, you will also get a chance to ask somebody else to peer review your essay. So let's say if you peer reviewed 5 essays, then you get to ask 5 other essays to peer review yours. And this is amazing because most of the people on that website are from different parts of the world. So you really are able to ask people who come from a different culture to see if your story makes sense to someone who is an outsider to yours. Okay, obviously we have Grammarly. If you don't have Grammarly yet, you are missing out. Grammarly is great, not just for writing essays, but for everything, for writing emails. It catches the most silliest, smallest typos. So I highly, highly recommend getting Grammarly. And then I can't recommend enough this amazing specialization on Coursera called Personal Essay. If you're going to audit this course, Personal Essay, it is free. It is free. And I've binge completed the specialization in less than 2 days. I mean, you don't have to do that. But if you're in 11th grade or you're just, getting started with your personal statement, I highly recommend listening to it, even just like as a podcast. But I also recommend taking notes because I really enjoyed this course. It really is a perfect course on how to write essays that are personal, that are dynamic, that are creative, that leave an impact on the reader. So you can take it for free. You just have to either request financial aid from Coursera, or if you don't want to go through that hassle, you can just, audit it. Yeah, I don't know if they should pay me for promotion, but it is a really, really great course and I recommend it. So specialization is when there are multiple courses, and if you want, you can get a certificate, but then you would have to pay for it. But if you are auditing it, it's free. Okay, then, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Veronica. Thank you, Borderless. I really enjoyed this. I really hope this gives you a little more confidence in getting started, or if you are, you're not a senior yet, that doesn't make the personal statement process daunting. As you can see, you can pick a topic as simple as going to Banya and turn it into a really thoughtful piece. So don't try to sound like someone you're not. You are already amazing and unique as you are. Again, sounds super cheesy, but that is true. You can take any experience in your life and turn it into an amazing story or reflective piece if you just allow yourself to be yourself. Okay, was a wonderful spending time with you, and I look forward to that recording and email. Bye.